Then we can begin with the first of these course talks that we are going to have about learning the language of affectivity. That is, what is affectivity? Is that something that everybody has in the same way, or is it something that can be educated? Is it a language that has to be learned, or all of us have already that? Let us see a piece. It is only translated, but it was like you see here in the screen. A young man, I was not his spiritual director, his spiritual director in Rome asked him to come with me because he was very moody. And he was asking himself about his vocation. So we spoke for a while. I asked him about his past, which is very important when you begin speaking with mainly with young people, but many times not only with young people, because you can find now 50 years old people to whom nobody asked them, what about your parents? So he was only 19, and I began, after he spoke about his problem, with, okay, tell me about your family. His father, his mother, his own, when he entered into the institution, and his first formators, and how he dealt with them, and how they used to demand him, and so, and then a lot of wounds searched in the surface, So he finished a little tense, a little anxious, the conversation, at the point that a few minutes after he sent me this WhatsApp. Is it normal me to feel angry, irate, and wanting to smash wherever I have at hand? And I answered him, those are feelings. Normal people have a lot. As you see, I answered him with a little bit of irony or even cynicism. And I want this answer that I have to cancel because he understands that I was making fun of him. But anyway, he finished his WhatsApp saying, okay, see you tomorrow. It helped me, and I realized that even if painful, it is helping me. But let us go here. Is it normal to feel angry, irate, and want to smash wherever when we have entered into my deepest wounds of my life? It is absolutely normal and legitimate. But some people are not able to name those feelings and are not able to say, it is normal that I have those feelings. And it is good for me to have those feelings. So there are people who are illiterate from the point of view of their affections, who are not able to see, to face the affections and to say, this is called this is called that. So let us do a little lesson of grammar, and let us see which is the alphabet of the emotions. And this alphabet is very easy because it has only six emotions. Those are like the cardinal virtues. There are only 4 cardinal virtues and hundreds of other virtues that can be hanged on one or the other of the 4. These 6 virtues are happiness, sadness, fear, disgust, anger, and surprise. And you can understand them very well if you remember inside out one. Because there are disgust, fear, anger, sadness, and happiness. And the message, perhaps it is good beginning this workshop speaking about movies. not as the movie, but as a workshop. That is the movie that doesn't count. And the message of Inside Out 1, I hope that you have watched it and it is not a spoiler, is that that we are, every one of them, conducted, driven by one different emotion in different moments of our lives. And the nice message of the movie is that unless what you think initially or apparently that I should be driven all the time but by happiness, it is not real. You need at times be driven by sadness, because if you have a loss of your health, because you got a diagnosis of illness, if you lose a person that you love, you need be led by sadness, because you have to digest that loss, and it is a heavy digestion. When you go to a big party and you eat too much and you drink also a little more than necessary, I need a rest. I cannot go to my computer and work as hard as usually. I need to stop, I need to rest, perhaps I need to have a little nap, and after that I can go to work. So that is the same with our emotions. But here are only 5 characters, and we said that there are 6 emotions. In fact, in Inside Out 1, they use explicitly this theory of the 6 basic emotions, but they weren't able to put the emotion of novelty research or surprise. So that is what we find in Inside Out 2. It is called anxiety, but it is not really anxiety. It is research for novelty. I need to explore other things. I need to be creative. I need to expand myself. And she creates a lot of chaos. But a person that does not have or is never driven by that research of novelty is a person who cannot grow. That is absolutely conservative and boring and repetitive. But not only boring for the other people, but boring for herself. Because doing all the time the same things is very boring. And it leads to you to burn out. Burn out, we will have a class about that. Image of burnout is the myth of Sisyphus, the one who had to take a stone out to the mountain, and then the following morning the stone was still there, and he had to clean every day the same. There is not this character. Inside Out 2 also speak about other more complex characters that are not part of these 6, like embarrassment, envy, and the French ennui. And the message, and here perhaps you have not already watched all of you the movie, but the message is very also interesting. The adolescents say, I am her ideals. I am a good person. It's more or less her ideal. And the message is, no, that is very simple for you. You are more complex and more rich. You are not only happiness, you are not only a good person. You are only an angry person. And you have only envy, and you have embarrassment. And you are like a dish made with all those components in a proportion that is absolutely original for you. And that is what makes you a person lovely and also a difficult person. So try and combine all those characters in you so that you are a nicer person, but also consider that all these, now we are speaking about emotions, in the book I speak about personality traits, taking advantage of the theory of the big five. All of them has like a coin, the face and the back face. So a person who is very extroverted is proactive, has a great easiness to make friends, but he can be very precipitated. So he commits a lot of mistakes for precipitation. Instead, an introverted person perhaps meets less people, perhaps do not accomplish so many goals, but she commits less fails, and she reasons. And part of the work of organizing an institution is also putting aside people who can complement themselves. That besides the proactive, I put the obsessive. That thinks and rethinks and rethinks. But besides the obsessive, I have to put a proactive, because otherwise we are thinking so much that we don't take ever the decision. So that is also a way of putting a team, a directive team that takes to the top that institution. And I finish with one idea that talked to me the priest of one of the houses in which I have lived before. Before becoming a priest, I was a little with the director. We have different personalities. All the people have different personalities. He was a little crazy, a lot of activities. He was a volcano, and I found that he made me put in order a lot of things that he didn't care but were important. And because of that, we have had a few arguments. So the priest of the house realized and told me, look, any institution in the church, but also outside the church, has the virtues and the defects of its leader. You are beside him, but he's the leader. And now you have to do a choice, a personal choice, which is, do you want to be the one who points all his defects, and then you take him down, and then you stop him in his ideas, which were objectively very, very good ideas? Or do you want the one who humbly completes the things that he cannot do, because we cannot have all the talents in our lives? That's why we need to live together and to work in team and in collegiality. So do you want to do that and correct him, but when you have to take one decision and you disagree, support his decision, because he's the one who has the responsibility. Okay, so apart from the movie, and now I have given you two possibilities of movies for these days. Can we find other examples of affectivity, for example, in the life of Jesus, of these basic 6 emotions? I think so. What about the death and resurrection of Lazarus? We see that Jesus is led by sadness. And obviously, if Jesus was happy in the middle of Martha, Mary, and everybody crying, and so it wouldn't be normal. So Jesus also even cried, we say. and he was also angry when he cuts out the sellers from the temple. So it is a good thing to be angry, because angry is a good passion. That means I rebel against injustice things. It has been done bad and I don't like it, and it makes me not only upset, but because it is a passion, every passion, we will see that, leads me to action. I have to do something so as to justice is put in its place. But the scene of the gospel in which I see more affections in the life of Jesus is the episode of the young rich, because we see the rich young man, yes, because we find that this man goes to Jesus and he says, Master, what do you have to do for getting eternal life? And Jesus says, we read in Mark, who does not say that he was young. So we have to merge all the Gospels. He loved him. So he found a kind of surprise, of novelty, of that anxious, not anxious in the sense of crazy movement, but I love you, I want you to be one of my followers. And so he invites him to follow him. But the young rich man goes out. And how does Jesus rest? Sure, little sad, but also with a sense of disgust, which is different from sadness. Because Jesus, in that moment, not only say, I'm sorry, but he becomes a little cynic, because he said, it is very difficult for rich people to go to heaven. You think about that and you say, it is a little paradoxal, because Jesus has come to get everybody to heaven. So how is he putting difficulties? If he is the one, he put it because he had disgust. He said, it has been very, very, very hard for me. I don't like it. And then how does he regain happiness? When Peter tells him, we have left everything for you and for the kingdom, what are we going to have? And Jesus, seeing the fidelity of the apostles, say, you will receive 100 per one and the eternal life. So he regains his inner peace, and also his heart expands, and he promises that prize. Okay, so I think it is a very good thing to read the Gospels also from that point of view, the disgust and sadness that Jesus has during the agony in the temple and so.
Disgust is disappointment. It's more because disgusto in Spanish is a little different than disgust, I think, but I'm trying to get the...
Well, I don't know exactly the translation in English, but I think that the basic emotion is called disgust. That means, I think, disappointment, we can say, no?
That's what it seems like, because disgust is when you see something.
Yeah,
gross,
like refusal. I don't like it, is the disgust. I don't like what I have. Okay, so we can go to a first definition of what is affectivity. We can define affectivity as the emotional reaction that I suffer, that I experience in my relationships with myself, with the world, and with other people. In all those interactions, I get an emotional response that informs me that something is pleasant or unpleasant for me. But it is not only an information in my heart or in my mind. It is something that spurs me to action, to seek or to avoid that something. So it is the emotion is something that we have to read, and that you have to acknowledge, and that we have to accept, because it doesn't mean that we have to follow all the time all the affections. It means that we have to be aware of them and not to act all the time against the affections. Stating it in a little radical way, some people understood during a certain period of time, about 3-4 centuries, that the formation of the heart of the emotion is the repression of the heart of the emotions. And perhaps because of insisting too much on you have to pray, even if you don't experiment so much emotions in it. You have to wake up in the morning, even if you don't feel like that. You have to go to school and to the classes, even if you don't enjoy that. So you can, not consciously, but you can say that I have to work independently of my affective world. Even the more I work against my affections, the more virtuous I am. But that would be an unhuman perspective, because we have 3 dimensions. I have not entered in it too much, but not only the classical distinction of man between body and soul is absolutely legitimate, classic, Thomas Aquinas and Aristotle, but the affections enter there with a great difficulty, because they are not bodily, they are not in a strict sense spiritual. So I prefer, when I speak these issues, to use St. Paul in the letter of the Thessalonians, I think, when he says that all your being, body, soul, psyche, and spirit, pneuma, are addressed versus God. So these 3 dimensions help us to say, what are we speaking about? We're speaking about psyche. So when you, in your relationship with other people, and also in your relationship with God, put not only your mind, not only your will, but also your affections, that is more perfect, because it is more human. Obviously, it does not mean that if there are not affection, I don't pray. No, it means that don't be afraid to put your heart in dealing with God, and obviously in dealing with the other people.
Is it interchangeable to say affectivity is the same as emotional intelligence?
Not exactly, because emotional intelligence, I read the famous book of Daniel Goleman only a couple of years ago. It is a way of understanding the world. So emotional intelligence is more a language or a filter that you have, or an ability that you have to read part of the reality. As I understand affectivity, it is something that you have in yourself, not so much in your intellectual dimension, but in your emotional or affective dimension. But obviously they are linked.
So when I was like trying to explain like what a class of affectivity was, I was like, oh, it's like psychology integrated with like Christian anthropology. But I don't know if you like, is that, and I'm not sure I'm still not sure how to describe the like. Is that correct, or would you change the definition? Like
Yes, and we're going to deepen in this now. So, what happens when one does not take attention to that affective part of his being? That, as this famous sentence says, and as Pope Francis has a lot of time repeated, God always forgives, man often forgives, nature never forgives. You can, and sometimes you must, go independently of your affections, of what your body or your sensibility is asking to you. I don't like that person, but I have to treat her with delicacy, and I have to live with her, and I have to show her affection. But you cannot be all the time in so many dimensions of your life working, ignoring your affections. I don't like the task that I am doing. I don't like the work that I am doing. I don't like the people with which I am doing. Does it mean that I have to change that? Perhaps yes, but perhaps you have to change yourself so as to look at them in another way. And then we enter into the education of the affectivity. Because if we stop in the previous slide, we go, so follow everything that your heart says to you. No, I don't say that. I say, be aware of that information and manage them. Because the affectivity has limitations. Every affection is able to see only its partial goods. It is like the stomach. The stomach has only two words: hungry, satisfied. No, perhaps ulcera. That might be the third one, but it is pathological. But it doesn't understand that it is Lent, it is Ash Wednesday, and for a superior reason, it is good for me not to eat. Does it diminish your hunger? Not. But it helps you as a world to support that hunger because you have a reason, you have a motivation. Furthermore, affectivity or affections can see only in the short term. I like the cake. It is very tasteful. I like very much chocolate or sugar, and so I eat because I like, and it doesn't realize that at the long term I get extra satisfied and fat. And perhaps that I am diabetic. And then it is not only something that do some harm to my life, but only can be dangerous. And then they judge between pleasant and unpleasant, and not between good and bad. So there is also a moral dimension. If one sees a beautiful man in the street and see, wow, or a colleague in the work that is a very friendly and attentive and affectionate, so wow, I might share my life with this one. Okay, but he's married and you are celibate, so something does not fit. But the affection is the same. The fact that I realize that he's married and I am celibate does not change at all the fact that I like him, even that I have fall in love with him, which is also possible. I remember a young man, a little naive, that came to me to a spiritual direction and said, I don't know what happens to me, because I have met this colleague in the work, in my job, I'm spending some time with her, and I'm finding myself thinking on her a lot of time, and wanting to see her here and there. And when I have an opportunity, I ask a question, even if it's not necessary. And well, but I'm happy in my vocation to celibacy. What is happening to me? I'm absolutely illiterate in affectivity. I told him, my friend, I am sorry, but I think you are in love. It is not possible. Why not? Because I am happy in my vocation. Yes, but you are a man. Probably she's beautiful and nice, and so you are in love. So what can I do now? Don't worry. According to the psychological studies, the getting in love lasts between 6 months and 18 months as a media. So just you wait, like in Alexander Hamilton. Just wait, be prudent, don't close radically with that person, because in that case, unless it is necessary, and sometimes it is, but just take some distance. Don't stay with her alone unless it is necessary, but in that case, speak only about the necessary issues, and don't open your intimacy to her, and let her not to open her intimacy to you. In such a way, everything will be colder. Now I take advantage about another thing. It is different when things are when someone got in love, but it is more or less under control. A person who is sure in his vocation and nothing objectively happened. When it has happened something, then you have to cut. And I have had a lot of conversations with people, celibate people, in different institutions of the church, that said something happened. I know that we have to stop, and we agree. Sometimes the other person does not agree so much, but I want to keep as a friend of her. It is not possible. Whenever you have broken the limits, whenever that person is not or has not been in a recent time a friend of you, but something more, and there were manifestations of affections, it will be very difficult for you to see her only as a friend. And when you have a moment of moody, blue, needing affection, the normal up and downs, it will be very easy for you to look in her what you know that she has, because you have already found them. In this case, you have to be very, very radical. If necessary, because there is not another way, change your job or avoid to meet her at all, including changing the messages that come in, cancel the WhatsApp number, and so. Otherwise, it is letting a door open to not to infidelity, but to deepen in the infidelity. Okay, so affections only work for driving the person in the short time, and they need a guide, which is reason. We have 3 dimensions, but they are not at the same level. A person has to be driven by intelligence, taking consideration of the information by the affections, and also seeing how the will is able to follow him or not. So there is a need of education of the affectivity, which top is that the good is likely for me, that I enjoy good even if it is arduous. order affectivity like a policeman in a cross. Sometimes some people get nervous because a policeman in a cross for some people is a synonym of chaos, but a good policeman in a cross is the one who sees a car who's driving too fast and say, hey, slow down. Another one who or stops all the traffic because an ambulance is passing, or sees this old man in a wheelchair and say, hey, all the cars slow down and let him pass because he will be slower. So he's able to manage the situation that might be chaotic without anybody to suffer. And sometimes find a crazy man riding too fast or riding in zigzag and say, hey, stop here, blow, and we will see what is the problem with you. If we do that, affectivity and mind and will, instead of being a struggle, are going hand by hand, even enter in synergy, which means that they enrich themselves because they are mutually sending one another the information, and so they enjoy together. But is this possible? Because I am as I am. I have grown in a family. I am now more or less old. I have crystallized my personality. Is it possible to change? Or still more, we can ask, are not affections, passions, something that I receive passively? This is the way in which I react. I cannot do anything. I'm tired. I don't like it, so it is not my fault. I have uploaded this article by Amedeo Cencini, who is a Canosian religious man in Italy. He is, I think, the most famous psychologist and priest. We have invited him a lot of times to Santa Croce. And so this is the book that I said that is not still translated or published into English. I have to work on it. So he did his first, this very answer. And he said, no one can think that sensitivity is given to him as something innate, received by nature. No, everyone is responsible for his own sensitivity. He has built it and continues to build it through his daily choices. In even more direct and cruder words, each one has the sensitivity he deserves. Hey, that is re-victimizing. I feel sad and I am guilty of feeling sad. Yes, but it is not what he means. And if you read the whole article, you will see what he means. Because after that, he puts the example of the parable of the Good Samaritan, in which the Levite and the priest pass along the people who has been attacked, and they close their hearts. And he said, in that choice, they have educated for the bad. They have de-educated their sensibility. Their heart will be hard because of a free decision. Instead, Mother Teresa of Calcutta, when she went to the streets of the city and found a baby in the streets in the dust, her heart was moved in piety, in mercy, and she took the baby and she took it to her house. That is a sensitivity that has been educated. And now we arrive at the thank you, doctor, for your diagnosis. Can you please do some therapy or recommend us some therapy for us or for the people that we accompany? We are going to divide it in three tips. The first one is taking advantage of our senses so as to lift them, so as to they can be even being senses, so touch, but more in contact with the supernatural. Let's see St. Paul. He says, those who are unspiritual do not receive the gift of God's Spirit, for they are foolishness to them, and they are unable to understand them because they are spiritually discerned. People who are too worried with the material goods, with the sense, with receiving pleasure or stimulation in their senses, are have very difficult to enter in dialogue with God. So let us go to the 5 senses and see how can I use my senses in a more spiritualized way, being absolutely senses, so without the grace that rise, that perfects the nature. The sight. The sight can be in some way spiritualized by the art. So that's why one way when you find some people who is very emotional or very engineer, because we can find all the extremes, and so because the one that I said before, the one who was angry and didn't know what was happening, he was an engineer in his mentality. So once I heard by another professor from Santa Croce that a very good educated sensibility is the one that is able to enjoy beauty even if he cannot possess it. And he put the example of a sunset. You find people who look at the window or go to the sea and say, hey, how beautiful it is. And other one passes and say, well, the same as yesterday. I think no, but seeing that, because it is not only seeing, it is enjoy that above that materiality. Here in Washington DC we have this Da Vinci, and that's why I invite the people to which I have invited. Go to the National Gallery. Do you want to educate your affectivity? Go to the National Gallery or to any other museum. Then we have the ear. How to educate the ear? We can do it through silence. Cardinal Sarah, as you know, wrote a 300 pages book about silence, so you can speak very much about silence. And that is contrasting with our world, because our world is made of postcard music and so. Perhaps you have the experience of I'm going for a walk, for running, for anything, so I put my earphones or I switch on the radio, and then I fill my brain of noise, of information. Instead, try and be alone with yourself, so as to you can think, so as to you can reflect on your emotions, so as to you, for a personal example, my favorite sport is riding a bike. I try and ride a bike for 3-4 hours in this weekend in Rome, and from the beginning I did the resolution of not to use ever the earphones, and not to go to the gym. Go to the open if I can, if it is not raining. Why? Because outside is beauty. A gym is not beauty. And as I am riding, perhaps gym is beauty, I don't know, but for sure not as beauty as the Creek Park in Washington DC, which is where I am riding the bicycle. So then, as I am riding, I pray a rosary, I think, I prepare a class, I reflect about my reactions, and about why I had that argument with that people, and then I have the possibility of being with myself. There is a specific moment in which that silence is very important, which is the night time, in which one is invited to be alone with God. Especially important with celibate people who are called to say as Jesus, you can let me alone, but I am never alone because the Father is with me. If you don't feel never alone, it will be much more difficult for you to feel the company of the Father. Then the taste. That has to see with a temperance with the material goods that stimulate our senses, which must require the food, the drink, and the sexuality, which are the three parts of the temperance according to Aquinas: sobriety, abstinence, and chastity. And then the smell that they put in relationship with taking care of oneself, being clean, being brushed, the man be shaved, and use even some kind of perfume, discreet, not exaggerated, because when I put myself, when I wash my hair, when I put a little bit of perfume, I am doing to my body something. I treat my body in a way which is more than material. I give him something that is more than necessary, but is good for it, and also people also appreciate it, and it is with myself. And finally, about the touch, I put it in relationship with the delicacy dealing with the other people, in touching them, in speaking to them, in serving them, and so. We Christians have also a privileged way of putting all the five senses in action, which is liturgy. In liturgy, in a prepared liturgy and a beautiful liturgy, the top is the Easter Vigil. We have the sight, we have the ear, we have the smell, the incense, the flowers, we have the taste, because we receive the body of Christ in our tongue, and we have also the touch, because we also use our hands with our body to kneel down, to do a genuflection, and so. So all the five senses are put in action in liturgy. But nothing of that works if we don't control the inner senses, the memory and the imagination, because I can avoid to have my earphones or not to watch a TV show, but I can put the TV show in my imagination. So I use this slide because it serves for if I do the chat for women and for men. Everyone chooses. Okay, so the second one is the dynamic of the delayed gratification, which means wait. And nowadays, in 21st century, the specific moment or instrument in which you have to wait is the cell phone. If you have to increase your fortitude, just not use your cell phone as frequently as you would be called to do. There is a very famous experiment, which is the experiment of the marshmallow, which was directed by Walter Mitchell, who was a professor of psychology in Stanford. The experiment consisted on putting a marshmallow in front of a 4-year-old kid and telling him, if you wait for 15 minutes, I will give you a second one. Well, the results of the marshmallow experiment were very easy to perceive. You know what is going to happen. Some kids would wait, others would not wait, and they will develop some strategies that help them to wait. But that is the most known part of the marshmallow experiment, but it's not the marshmallow experiment. It was not the goal of Mitchell. What Mitchell do was studying, doing a follow-up of the people for the next 40 years. Then doing checkups after 5-10 years or so. And then what he found is that the kids that at the sweet age of 4 years were able to wait, not eat, and then get the reward of the second marshmallow, when they were 44, had more frequently college and university studies, so a higher social and economical level, more stable families, and less problem with sex, drugs, and rock and roll. So he was a psychologist, not a moralist, so he didn't want to, his message was not, do your kids more virtuous. No, he was American, so he wanted that the people wanted to earn more money. So the message was, parents, if you want that your kids go further and have a more flourishing life, learn them to wait. And this is the same that we can do also in the pastoral work and also in ourselves. If I want to have a better life, I have to learn to wait. Also, because there are a lot of stimuli that want to catch my attention, and the goal, the second marshmallow, which is a huge marshmallow for me, is heaven. So that is the why it is good for me not to eat the small marshmallow now, but I wait for not 15 minutes, but perhaps for 60 years, and then I will get the huge marshmallow, which is heaven. I am not going to develop the third part for two reasons. First, because it is time, if I am not wrong, and second, because I had in Washington, D.C., a talk in which I developed these contents, and it will be uploaded, I hope, in a few days in the YouTube channel about relationships, which is the third part for growing our sensibility and educating our affectivity. So I will go very fast. Simply, we all need to love and to feel loved, and the areas in which we can do that is family, job, and friends. So every one of them, family, job, and friends, have their own goals and laws, we can say, but I stop here because although I spoke in the other talk about this, I want to underline, and I want also that if you are very busy and you are not able to read all the single text that I have uploaded in the Dropbox, please, this one is the best, and it is not mine. He's a Franciscan that we invited in Santa Croce, and he spoke about the value of friendship in celibate life. and it is the most beautiful text that I have read about celibate and friendship, and it touches very sensitive topics. For example, friendship with people of the other sex, eroticized friendships, and particular friendships. And he says, for a celibate person, sexual abstinence can, at a first glance, be the hardest. But for a person, when we mature, we see that the most difficult is not to have somebody with which to share our intimacy. Just today, in the spiritual reading, I read a book in which the author said, celibacy means renouncing to exclusivity. I loved the idea, and I'm going to incorporate the idea to the chat. Means that for a man and a woman who are married, all their intimacy is for the other, and they cannot share it with any other one. We are not married. Does it mean that I cannot share my intimacy with anybody? No, because in that case, you keep it for yourself and then you implode, because it is a natural need. He says, for the celibate person, friendship is the most suitable way to live this out. We need a lot of people in all the different areas that we have spoken, in family, both biological family, but also the family vocation, in job, in our hobbies and so, and then we have a lot of people with which to share our intimacy. But speaking about friendship will lead me too far, so I think it is good for all of us to stop here. As it is a time we don't have time today for questions. I had a long introduction, so that's why I also finished a little late, but we will have time for your questions in the following days. Okay, so thank you very much.